I'm not sure why I'm making this video. It's about 3 in the morning. Do you like my glasses? They're crooked. If they're on straight like this, I have like a blind spot right here. So they're like kind of crooked. Straight. Crooked. Straight. I guess like if I meet people, I should be like that. Ooh, look, it makes my eyes look more yellow. Yeah, 3 in the morning, and the reason my glasses are crooked is because my head is crooked. I guess I should warn you, this is probably going to be one of my like 30-minute videos. So if you're not interested, don't watch this. If you are, then glad for you to be able to waste your time about my rants. Not that my rants are all 100% useless or whatever. It's just most of my rants tend to be long and dawdling, and today they apparently are making noises that my stomach is making. Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. Stop. Man, if you could smell that. You know what's funny? For the first time in my life, I can see my Adam's apple. It's right there! Oh my god. I've always been fat, so since like 5th grade, I like seeing my collarbone. Wow, am I really that white? Seeing my collarbone or feeling it is like odd. There's a bone there. Or my wrist bone. Like I can see the bone on my wrist. I've never been able to do that before. See, these things that like skinny people always take for granted, like being able to see your Adam's apple and being able to see your weird wrist bony thingy. I went to the doctor's today, and well, I guess yesterday, because today is not Wednesday, it went on Tuesday, and they took my blood pressure, and it was way below normal, like 100/67, and then I ate a salty lunch, and it was still only, when I got home, 119/77. So is that good blood pressure? The reason I talk about my doctor is today's rant will be something I haven't talked about in a long time. It's religion. Do I believe? Do I not believe? What is happening? What is the question? Now, over the past year, I've went to the doctor for checkups, or I guess the past 3 years. In the past 3 years, from the time that I had cancer while I was working, I've went to the doctor 122 times, so that's almost 1/3 of a year. That's 1/3 of a year. Went to the doctor days. I went to the doctor. I think water tastes funny. And I've actually been hospitalized in those 3 years 22 times. Of those 122 times that I've been to the hospital, I went for dialysis twice a week for 6 months, I think. 7 months. Because my kidneys, because of the cancer medication, were going funny as well. Now, in that time, my mouth still tastes funny. You get to thinking, because it's times where you're stuck on a bed and a machine is pulling the blood out of you and cleaning it and putting it back, and then you're freezing cold. Weird thing about dialysis. And then you're waiting there for 2 to 4 hours every time, and you don't know what else to think about. You bring your iPod and you bring your computer, and you can't really move that much. So this is probably better, or maybe possibly the phone to text people. And you have hours to think about stuff, and the times being in the hospital because of cancer were not necessarily the worst times of my life. The worst times of my life were when you're in the hospital and because of food allergy. One time I was in there for 3 days because I ate orange flavored gum. I'm allergic to berries, and I ate orange flavored gum. And I was in the hospital for 3 days because of natural flavors. So you tend to end up eating the same things over and over again because you don't want to have natural flavors attack your kidneys, your eyes, and your feet. Eventually, like, I'm already pretty fluffy and, fat. I was fatter before. And I got to the point, I wish someone would have taken a picture, but no one came to the hospital. I had a camera with me. I could have asked the nurses to take a picture of me. I was absolutely swollen. Like, swollen. Comedy routine swollen. I mean, I was so swollen that you could poke me in places on my arm and fluid would just come out. And in fact, they did little cuts in certain places so that my skin would not burst. And they put liquid sutures and it looked fine later, but it's just like, oh my god, like they put like 20 cuts on you so that your inner thigh wouldn't explode and you could walk later, your armpit. Some of the most horrific things imaginable. And I went through it, and that wasn't the worst part. The worst part of having it, well, cancer, not a food allergy, is that you're always tired. Can you hear that? It's coyotes outside. And just being constantly tired, and you come home and then you're just tired again, and you sleep, and then you can't sleep anymore, but you can't get out of bed. And because you haven't eaten or drank anything for 2 days, you don't go to the bathroom anymore. You end up going to the hospital and they give you fluids, and you just look like this dried up prune of a person. And people always ask, are you sick, or are you getting a cold or something, because you're like pale and gray looking. And the last time that I looked, where I saw someone look pale and gray looking like that, is they were about to die, or they were on a lot of drugs, may it be cancer or recreational. And it's like the most tiring, horrible time. And the reason I'm talking about it is throughout that time I now realize that I'm not afraid of death. For the 20 odd times I was in hospital, I could have easily just died. In fact, I did die once. I went to cardiac arrest and I stopped breathing. They said that. It's funny how you don't remember these things. You'd think that you'd remember like beeping and things like that, but I guess if you're passed out and you don't remember stuff, you wouldn't remember it. My family never came because I never called. One time I did call, the gum time, because I was in the hospital for 3 days, and only one person came. And it makes you think about life and death, because you could be dead easily, like in a minute, or I could at least. Stick blueberries in me, and I will be dead in a few minutes. I am that allergic. There are times that I go to places that have berries, and I don't tell them to please wash the thing extra carefully because I'm allergic to berries. In fact, I shouldn't go to those places, just like Cold Stone or Jamba Juice or any of these places that are just like, a shared thing. In fact, now I can't even have anything from McDonald's that's blended because I'm scared that I'm going to get something from there. They have something blueberry now. Blueberries are so good for you. Berries are so good for you. But then when I was 9, I went to the hospital and I had these huge hives, and I mean baseball, softball sized hives all over my legs, like this big. And I wasn't that big of a kid, and just like huge things. And they're like, "What did you eat today?" I'm like, "Only blueberries." And I stuck out my tongue. My tongue was blue. So at that point, I realized that I was allergic to blueberries, which sucked because I love blueberry muffins and pancakes, and makes my mouth water now, even though it will make my mouth die. But imagine something that you've been eating, and this has happened to me before, also with beef. Fun. Um, you ate it all your life since you were little. Strawberries, or something that you've just eaten all your whole life, like beef or eggs, and then suddenly one day allergic. Uh, I gave up meat for Lent one day, and when Lent. Well, actually, I was a vegetarian for 6 years, but I gave up meat for Lent one time, and although it's hard, 40 days and 40 nights without something is not that hard. And when I went to go eat meat again, of course, I was slightly allergic to all meat. And then I figured out later, and my allergist told me later, I was completely allergic to beef. This is not to say that I will not eat beef. I still will eat it knowing that I have consequences, but there is nothing I can do about that now. So, what are you supposed to do? Talking about allergies, talking about growing up with things and things that are like monolithic like that. You end up like wondering about a lot of stuff. Sorry, this is gonna be loud. Okay. CD drive is going. When I was younger, I used to be very, very, very religious. To the point where it was, I mean, I believed in God. God believed in me. But being me, I'm a pretty precocious question asker, and having Catholic priests not answer you, you tend to do your own research. So I had a Bible. I read it all the way through many, many times. We went on to read the Quran, the Talmud, lots of religious books, lots about religion, and it made me believe in not believing. If I couldn't get my questions answered, then it was something that I could not believe in. This is somewhere around ninth grade. It's also the time that I was questioning my sexuality. Of course, my parents knew I was gay already, because in kindergarten I would always wear this pink hat. I really liked the gay Smurf. I didn't know he was gay until later. And it was a time of flux. I mean, I was doing things that I shouldn't have been doing, and I was hanging around people I shouldn't have. Still getting good grades, which was fun. So, really, my parents didn't worry, I guess. I'm not sure how I feel about it now. There are times that I argue with my parents now, because in 4th grade they wanted to skip us up to 9th grade. It's 5 grades. After they had tested our IQ, my identical twin brother having a 175 IQ, myself having 169. I took it again when I was in college, and it was at 171. It's pretty close. Genius level IQ. Not bragging, I'm just saying. My brother was smarter than me anyway. And why did I put these on? Because they fit over my other glasses. And by the ninth grade, I was completely confused. I was probably on drugs or alcohol or something. Uh, a lot of ninth graders were, unfortunately, at least in my area, because there's absolutely nothing to do for ninth graders here. You join a club, you go to church. People were normal. Being trapped in the suburbs is like being in purgatory, or what I imagine purgatory would be. My purgatory would be stuck in the suburbs, never able to leave. And you get these good Christian boys and girls, and in my case, a lot of Catholics. And, they do bad things because they have nothing better to do. There was a club in the church called Spirit of Love, and I talk about them in rants and raves because they epitomized what I hated about Christians. They were uppity and they were self-righteous, and they believed that they were right until a whole bunch of them got pregnant. uh, and then I knew I was right. It's like they knew better than you. And knowing me as myself, being the smartass individual that I am, people who think that they are better than other people, are generally worse off than most people. And particularly Christians, at least in my community, who knew that they were right 100% of the time, and would not ever give up to something else I thought was wrong. In my family, we were always taught to question what the teacher said, because more than likely the teacher was wrong. Not to say that my teachers were always wrong, but if there was no official explanation for it, then that was not an answer for me or my brothers. We were the smartass assholes in school. And we weren't by far the smartest or hardworking people in school. We were just average students. And we just had above average thoughts. And not thoughts, that makes me sound conceited. Just, we had above average intelligence, and we knew that we were smarter than a lot of our teachers. There was a few overlapping classes that I had with my brother where we completely abolished the teacher. We demolished them. Their English class in 12th grade, I feel bad for what my brother wrote about my English teachers, and they tried to get him suspended and stuff. Like, he would write that my teacher was a happy, magical little elf that lived in a happy little forest or something like that. He kind of looked like an elf, and he made illustrations and put them on the front of the essays. And it's not that he wasn't answering it, that was just an asshole thing to do. And we did it in math class when we were together, and band, and it's just, we were bored. Someone of high intelligence being in an average class and being not intellectually stimulated is just completely horrible. You don't realize how unstimulating it is until you go to college, and then you have classes that you struggle in. You realize, God, this is what people were like struggling in all this time, and like in high school we were just like breeze through it. Get B's, do nothing. Go to math class, get B's, do nothing. Go to history class, have a photographic memory, never have to study for anything. And then you go to like college where they actually want you to have critical thinking skills, and then you realize that when you the high school that you went to, the critical thinking skills were not necessarily something that they taught. And you were ahead of the game even when you were in college, because that was the only thing you thought about, because there was nothing else to think about. And with religion, it's what I thought about. It's death all the time. I was a pretty depressed person. I still pretty much am a depressed person. Knowing so much about religion and knowing how stupid some people are about religion, um, your outlook on life is more bleak and horrible than your average person. You can still see my glasses underneath these. Um, the best times with religion for me was when I took it as religion as a like the Bible and the Talmud as literature. It was awesome. To be and it was awesome because there was some moderate Christians in there who believed in it, and then there were the fundamentalists that were like thrown out of the class basically by the more intellectual kids in the class. Because they wanted to make it black and white, and it was literature. It was not, the story about the Tower of Babel and the Genesis and the Earth creation and all these things. It was story taken by a very gay professor who knew his Bible very well and was able to outquote the Christians. And it showed that the Christians didn't actually know what the Bible was. And that marked me as being poignant, because a lot of the times fundamentalist Christians will scream things at you, but they won't actually know where it's from or why it's taken out of context or whatnot. Having read the Bible over 20 or 30 times and different versions of it, and the marked differences between the Bibles is insane. I learned a little Greek and a little Russian to read the Russian and Greek Bibles, and just the way that it translates is completely different. There's so much lost in translations. It's not even funny. Going from Greek to Russian, a lot less is lost in translation than going from Greek to English. But there's just stuff that it doesn't translate. So you have to deal with it as it is. Yeah, that's all for that subject. Which goes on to me studying various religions. I never really was interested in Jainism or the Eastern religions, Buddhism, Hinduism. They're interesting because they have different creation myths and whatnot. But because they were circular in nature, where the world had to be balanced and there was no concept of right or wrong, just deeds. I mean, there's a concept of right or wrong, but it's not the concept of the Western way that we think of right or wrong. It's more about balance. I never connected with it. And whenever I studied philosophy in college about dialectics and nonlinear theory, not nonlinear theory like math, but nonlinear philosophical theory, I'm scratching my armpit. It didn't click with me. I later learned that dialectics were good on a straight line and could go forward and backwards like a yo-yo. But I didn't learn that until much later in life, in college, and I didn't understand it. So I clutched onto the Judeo-Christian religions that includes Islam. Sometime in my sophomore year of college, I got really involved in looking at Islamic literature and Islam, and I wish I had learned like Arabic or something, but when it came down to it, I almost converted to Islam. It was a lot. It's a lot like Christianity, and people don't realize this. I mean, the Bible is still the earlier books are still pretty much the same. All the Abrahamic faiths are pretty the same. It's the same reason that in my junior year of college, I converted to Judaism because of a boy. I converted because I really wasn't interested in religion at all. So switching to another religion that I wasn't interested in was not that hard, except for that person died. So it was a little different then. So I guess you could call me a non-practicing Roman Catholic Jew. It's just wrong, which it's funny on me because I'm Asian and non-practicing Jew, non-practicing Roman Catholic. And for religion, for me, when it comes down to it completely, is always about death. What will happen after death? Is there something after death? And I can't tell you what I believe because I don't know what I believe. Is there an afterlife? I don't know. Is there a different heaven for different religions? I don't know. It would seem more peaceful if that was the case. People would argue a lot less. When I was 22, one of the few times I realized that I wasn't afraid of death. I was afraid of getting hurt, but I wasn't afraid of death. I think when you are 22, you have this kind of like thought in your mind that you're not going to die. And life isn't going to affect you as much as you think it will. But it did. When I was 22, I was teaching a grad school class, or I was in grad school teaching a class. Comparative political science. And I taught over 50 ROTC kids. These are people who were in the reserves or going to go into the military after college so that they could be officers. And when I was 21, George Bush said that we should go to Iraq and Afghanistan, and by the time that I was 27, all of them had been dead. They all gave the ultimate sacrifice to our country, and you look how much horribleness that people can inflict on one another. Whether we were right or wrong is not the answer or question of this, but it's just you realize the amplitude in the simpleness of life when death confronts you in the face 50 times within 5 years. Probably more like 60. But in 5 years, you expect about 10, 20 people to die that you know. Not 60. That's when I knew I was anti-war. I was before the war, but I'm more anti-war now than I was before the war. And how much one person's convictions can change the world for bad or worse, or good or bad. Those were 50 people who more than half of them were going to become doctors. Again, more than half of them came from poor backgrounds, and I'm just glad that they were able to go to college at all. And they will never see their potential. They were none older than, by the time that they died, 30. Some of them had families already. Some will never see their families, and some of their kids will never see this video, but I feel bad for them. Religion has the potential of unleashing the best things in humanity. Art, literature, the Renaissance, algebra. Young Islamic Muslim scholars discovered algebra, astronomy, these wonderful things that we use today. And then they can do so much things like suicide bombs, IEDs, the Crusades, the Inquisitions, witch burnings. They just it religion has such a good potential and such a bad potential at the same time. Just all things through and through. And it always ends up for me with death. Is death finite? Is death the end? I'm not afraid of death anymore. The 22 times I was in the hospital, and especially the last 3 times that I was in the hospital, it was just like I didn't know if I was going to live or die. And the doctors told me so. I died on the table once. I stopped breathing 4 or 5 times. And I'm surprised I'm breathing now. Not full of drugs, bloated somewhere, not dead in West Hollywood, not full of virus or disease or plague. I'm just here, stuck in my bedroom, making videos for you. That's my life. And I'm not sure that I'm convincible for anything else as well. I'm pretty set of what I know, and unless something miraculous happens, literally miraculous, miracle happens, I'm not sure that I would be able to accept anything else otherwise. I've seen so much death. I've seen so much life that I wouldn't believe me if I had told the story. My story. I bought a car, I traveled 50,000 miles in a year, helped run a presidential campaign, helped run a senatorial campaign, helped all these things that I had on my bucket list when I started college, or when I, started life. I didn't really start life until after high school. Classical musician, classically trained, accepted to Juilliard, never went. All these weird things that have happened to me that I can't explain. I just did them. Know the names, 30,000 plans. We take life for granted so many times. And in my 28 years, I've taken life for granted many, many times. Taken risks that I shouldn't have with my health, with the people around me, the people who love me, the people who didn't love me, people who used me. And I don't know what to tell you to make your life better, but I can only tell you what I know. I know that life is hard. Life is not fair. Life's a choice. And I've made many horrible choices, and I'm sure I will go on to make many more horrible choices. But, so long as the Earth is rotating around the sun and the sun rises the next day, there always is the next day. Unless you kill yourself. And then do you go to another place? Do people who kill themselves go to another place? I don't know. I don't know any of these answers for any of these things. I'd like to ask the questions, but I don't know the answers. Why is this not getting clean? Or am I, touching my eyes? Am I touching my nose and not realizing it? Or it's just not clean, and I'm just putting dirty glasses back on. I think it's just I'm putting dirty glasses back on. Anyway. Or am I touching it while I'm, polishing it? I'm gonna end it with a joke. What can you say to your dog that you can't say to your girlfriend? Come. Okay. That's it. Enough ranting. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.